The French be wildin'. Okay, that's what's happening in France right now. It's so crazy. So
it's terrifying.
There has been this concerning shift toward illiberalism and undemocratic behavior in European countries in recent years, including violations of free speech, canceled elections in countries like Romania. And I want to focus on France for the purposes of our discussion here, because it's been nearly a year since Pavel Durov, who's the CEO of the messaging app Telegram, was arrested the second his plane landed in France. Now, he was shocked that he was being arrested. He's like, he claims that he actually flew to France, where he's a citizen, by the way, to meet with Emmanuel Macron. He gets arrested by the French authorities immediately. And according to reporting from the Wall Street Journal at the time, they revealed that Durov was taken into custody after his private jet landed at the airport just north of Paris. Russia's foreign ministry demanded access for its diplomats to the 39-year-old tech entrepreneur. He was born in Russia, but and it's thought that he was targeted by the French specifically because he was born in Russia. But it's important to know that he actually does not have a good relationship with the Russian government. He left Russia because of the fact that he was also the founder of a social media site in Russia known as VK, and the Kremlin wanted access to people's private information, and he refused to hand it over. And so that pressure became too unbearable. He leaves Russia. So he's
Goes
not
to France.
This guy's
out of the frying pan.
This guy's a libertarian, and he really cares about privacy. Okay, Telegram doesn't collect private data.
That's what I was going to ask.
Exactly.
Right? That and like Signal. There's a couple of them that you can't capture anything from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly why he was targeted. The French have their cover story that I'm not buying into at all. His detention comes amid growing concern in Europe about Telegram's use by pedophiles, drug traffickers, and other criminals. French media reported that his detention was related to an investigation opened into Telegram's role in spreading child pornography and the platform's alleged refusal to cooperate with authorities in cracking down. So that sounds pretty serious, right?
I remember that, and I thought he was like bad guy number one.
So did I.
I really was. This is a couple years ago.
This was last year when he got arrested.
Okay.
In August of 2024.
I remember buying that completely and not, by the way, doing any homework into it until.
Because you hear child porn, and it's like, that's a bad guy. That's a bad guy, right? I don't care if he got arrested. But no, he is not accused of engaging in any of that criminality. What the authorities are accusing him of, and Telegram of, is refusing to cooperate with authorities in identifying the individuals who are engaged in criminality. But is he really guilty of that? Buckle up, and we're going to go for a ride, and I'll show you whether or not that's true. Now, in 2006, as I mentioned, he started the social media, Facebook-like media site. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to say VK. The Kremlin demanded information about its users. He resisted. By 2011, the site had become a tool for critics of Vladimir Putin to organize mass protests to challenge his rule. That's why Putin wanted this data on Telegram users. To the credit of Durov, he's like, no, I'm not going to hand it over. Sorry. And I'm concerned that France wants this data for a similar reason. So he left Russia in 2014 due to that continued pressure. But back to his arrest in France. All of these allegations made against him were denied by Durov and Telegram. Telegram says that we comply with the Digital Services Act, the European Union law that requires large social media companies to counter the exchange of illegal content, goods, and services on their platforms, and that Telegram has yet to be designated by the EU as a very large platform that would need to abide by those rules. However, it turns out that Durov and Telegram actually did have a pathway for French authorities to submit a request if they have, they've gone through the proper legal protocols, and then he'll hand over the data, right? But it has to go through a process. And in this interview with Tucker Carlson, he explains what that process is and how long that process was available to the authorities prior to his arrest. Take a look.
I asked the French policeman, why haven't you been following the European law and serving your legal requests in the way prescribed by this law, right? It's defined by the Digital Services Act, and it's there. You can Google the process. You can read the privacy policy of Telegram. It's easily accessible on the website. So why didn't you do it? And they didn't answer, but thanks God they started to do it. And then they started to receive responses helping them to identify criminal suspects, meaning we would disclose IP address and phone number of people who were suspects in criminal investigations when we received court orders signed by a judge.
Right.
And this was something that we had in place since a year ago before that. So it's not something that the French have forced us to do. It's something that we already had in place. We had a company in Belgium.
So they had a company in Belgium processing the requests from, government authorities if they have, pay close attention to what he said, a court order signed by a judge, because he doesn't want his platform to be abused by the government that seeks to essentially spy on individuals, right?
Especially when that's the purpose of the platform. Is not
Exactly.
it's decrypted. What's the word for it? It's not.
It's encrypted. Yes, it's encrypted.
So that's the whole point. So
Yeah.
obviously, I don't want to give up information. It's defeating the purpose
Right.
unless you go through the proper legal
And
channels.
in France, there are a lot of protests all the time. And it seems as though France wants to squash it, or they at least want to, maybe take a look at the individuals who are participating in these protests. And oftentimes they're protests by workers or ordinary people in France who are upset at the public transportation fare being increased unfairly, things like that. There have been protests like that in the past. Now, additionally, Durov has nothing to hide and travels frequently in Europe, Telegram said. It is absurd to claim that a platform or its owner are responsible for abuse of that platform. We're awaiting a prompt resolution of the situation. It's important to keep in mind, after his arrest, he was forced to remain in France as this investigation continues. He has not been charged with anything. So he can't leave France, which, by the way, really interesting. The Wall Street Journal uncovered that he and Telegram were being spied on by both the French and UAE, two countries that he has citizenship in, beginning in 2017.
Oh, wow.
France gave him citizenship in 2021.
That's bizarre.
But
And same with the UAE. They gave him citizenship after they began spying on Telegram and spying on him. Wow. So there's something really fishy happening here. Right. I think it's sick that there's just an investigation. He hasn't been charged with anything, yet he's being punished by not being allowed to leave France. And I'm sorry, I don't think any government official should have access to anyone's data unless they have a court order or a warrant, something signed by a judge. There needs to be probable cause. 100%. So I really respect the fact that Durov is like, no, you need to do this through the proper legal channels. We have a web page on our site that explains what the process is and how you can do it. He asked the French authorities, why didn't you go through this process? So if you're really concerned about the, pedophiles and the sex traffickers and whatever.
It's a pathway to get that information.
Yeah, and why didn't they do it?
It's legal and they're cooperating, which I actually did not know.
Yep.
And I thought they weren't.
I know.
It's crazy the fact that you need to do a deep dive on every headline.
On everything. Yes.
I was like, well, of course this is happening. Of course bad people are using this to exploit kids and sell drugs and trade arms. And this guy just wants money and he's not cooperating, because then all that bit, I did not until I saw this one headline and it went with the theme that we were doing in the show, did a little more digging, and I was like, all right, this seems crazy. This can't be real, and sent it to Anna. And then it just got worse the more you looked into it.
And just so you guys know my biases, because of preconditioning and in the way the media reported about him, I kind of started my research in this story with my own preconceived notions. I thought, no, this guy's obviously, there's something shady afoot. I'm going to dig super deep. No, the shadiness actually comes from the government of France. Final thing, the Wall Street Journal notes that Telegram is very popular with, liberal opposition groups inside and outside of France and places like Russia. Pro-democracy demonstrators also use the app in order to organize. And as the Wall Street Journal notes, quote, that would potentially make Durov a valuable asset for Western intelligence agencies seeking to crack open Telegram's encrypted communications.
Wow. That's interesting.
Anna, that was fascinating. Thank you for taking us on a tour.
It's gonna get
and
worse,
I just want to
Lindy.
add.
She's not done.
No, that's pretty much it. That's
Well,
I just want to
the
add.
Le Pen thing, though. Did you see that one?
I did. I didn't dig into that though, so I feel kind of
I
uncomfortable.
do want to add,
Yeah.
everything you said was so fascinating and eye-opening. I want to add what the macro environment right now is in France. It's under President Macron, who's historically unpopular. How unpopular? You think the Democrats are unpopular at 19%? Guess what Macron's approval rating is? It's 19%, and he's been sitting there for years at this point. And the snap elections in 2024 only made matters worse, and it's one misstep after another. And frankly, the highest rating throughout his presidency, I kid you not, was a whopping 31%. That was his peak. Okay, so this is like, obviously they're afraid, and that's why they're doing things like this. That's why I'm.
And to Jillian's point, I have to dig a little deeper into the story
I
to
have
know
a
what the
little
laws
bit of
are.
it.
Yeah,
Like,
like Marine Le Pen.
The issue is the hypocrisy that I took away from it. So I'll just give you this. France's top opposition leader is Marine Le Pen, right? So she's been banned from running for president now in 2027 in France after a conviction for misusing EU funds with immediate disqualification enforced before her appeal can even be heard. All right, so now on the same day, French police raided her party's headquarters, and the European Court of Human Rights rejected her emergency repeal. So if you're like, well, okay, yeah, but she misused funds, so that makes sense to me. Here's the part that's really shady, is that you kind of called it out, Lindy. Billion-euro scandals have been tied to Macron himself, including something called the Alstom energy sale, McKinsey COVID contracts, and massive campaign finance irregularities, which have led to zero charges on Macron due to his presidential immunity and selective prosecution. So there is something banana shorts going on in France.
I don't think it's bananas. I mean, Macron is the liberal guy, so it's okay when he does
Exactly.
Wait, it gets a little worse. It's not just legal, it's strategic. So you brought up debanking earlier. And by the way, has anyone ever seen the Trump family talk about this? They were debanked.
They were debanked.
And Mark Andreessen has gone on Rogan and talk about how they're strategically debanking people who engage in business models the government doesn't want you to, like AI. It's like, oh, you think you're going to start AI? No, we're controlling AI. You're debanked. So the financial system itself has been weaponized. France's far-right RN party was debanked, shut out of traditional funding, and forced to rely on Russian loans, which were later used to smear those people as foreign agents. So they were forced to take Russian loans because they were debanked, but then so they went to Russia. They used that to say, you're a foreign agent.
Right.
Aha. And then the same cordon sanitaire, whatever the hell that means, I guess the same playbook, was used to isolate the far right. It's now being deployed against the populist left, who oppose EU authority, NATO alignment, and technocratic rule. So it's like, it's these tools.
Listen, I hope everyone knows I was being sarcastic when I said it's okay when the liberal does the financial crimes. No, I think that if you have a legal standard, that standard needs to be applied equally, regardless of political affiliation. I actually do have a problem. She's been convicted of the, misuse of EU funds.
Right.
I do have a big problem with that, as I would if an American candidate or politician were doing the same thing. I would like that law to be applied equally to Macron if he's been taken to court and convicted of something similar.
And I
But he
think
has
it's
presidential
extremely
immunity. So it's like, it's a manipulation.
Yeah.
And this debanking thing is a huge deal. It happens here, as we talked about. It's happening all over the world. It's a weaponization of a globalist agenda, period. That is really what this show is about.
That's precisely right, and I think it's extremely fishy that the indictment came down after she managed to solidify 31.4% through the National Rally, which is her party. So the timing, I mean, just a coincidence? I don't think so. And by the way, right now Macron is seen as a bastion of democracy in Europe, because right now he's seen that, because right now, because Trump is withdrawing from the kind of, not officially, but he's demanding that they raise their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. He's making a variety of claims. He's kind of the pivot to Asia is still happening right now, and they're loosening their ties to our Western alliance, which I think is a terrible idea, with all due respect. But all this is happening, so it's leaving Macron in a power vacuum. He's taking that power vacuum and snatching the opportunity to portray himself as the one defender of European values against Putin. So right now, he is seen as basically the buffer with Zelensky against Vladimir Putin. And I think because of that reason, a lot of people give him a lot of slack, which he doesn't deserve.
Even with his 19% approval ratings.
That's domestic, but what I'm talking about is European
on the international stage.
It is a global agenda. There is no question, and we've talked before about who's really behind this guy, where he really came from, the richest people in the world, some of them with criminal backgrounds. Like, it's shady as hell. And if I could point out one kind of bizarre thing is that you're going after Durov because you care so much about kids being exploited, but again Macron was already
literally a kid who was exploited.
Picked up at 14, 15, but 14
It's a little bit ironic.
Brigitte Macron, who they claim was 40, but Candace suggests is really like was 44 at the time. Like, really? I don't know. It's scary stuff. It's scary stuff. And I do love, though, that we now have things like Telegram and things like Reddit, so you can fight back, you can organize.
Until they try to persecute you like they did with this guy. And what is annoying is like he's not the one distributing the material. He simply created the platform. And it's important to have platforms like that. Yes, they will require some policing, obviously, but through the proper legal channels. And it's such a simple story. I don't get why they've complicated this. They've tried to make it seem like he's doing all of these, like, when you break down the story to its nuts and bolts, he created a platform that allows anonymity. People did some bad shit, and because they're not going through the proper legal channels, he's still locked up? I didn't even know he was still unable to travel.
He's not locked up, so
I didn't know he was
but he
still
had to
in that
post like a
position.
€5 million bail in order to get out of. You know, it's interesting because, like, you listen to his interview with Tucker Carlson, and he's so, like, ridiculously fair to France. Did you listen to that?
Yeah.
Because he's just like, Tucker's like, they put you, like, in prison. He's like, well, it was a room, and it had, like, a yoga mat for a bed, and they did feed me well, so I wouldn't call it a prison. And he's like, were you allowed to leave? He's like, no. He's like, okay, it's a prison. But the other thing is, after he posted bail, they just said, like, sorry, we're investigating you, so you're not allowed to leave the country. And Telegram is based in the UAE. By the way, the UAE was also spying on him in 2017, along with France, which again begs the question, why did you guys give him citizenship in your countries if you thought he was such a bad actor?
Yeah. Another thing I want to point out is that this is just one weapon in the arsenal that they're using right now, because they are also going after Facebook, X, and a variety of platforms. President Trump actually had to step in and say, stop that nonsense right now. Stop going after our tech companies. Well, he's using, I love the phrase that you used yesterday. Trump has a hammer, and he uses it all the time. And
he has one speed.
Exactly. It's just tariff mode. And so it's not just Telegram. It's all of these companies, which really leads me to believe that they're afraid what the people will say.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is there any end in sight for this guy? Like, is there any, like, a date or anything for proceedings?
Yes.
Anything like that?
So apparently there's a certain amount of time in which France can legally force someone they're investigating to stay in the country. And once that time is up, they have to either charge him with something or let him go. But that day hasn't come yet. It's approaching soon. I just think it's wild that he's not, like, facing a trial at the moment. He's not facing any charges. It's like, we think you're a bad guy, so we're just going to keep you here and keep investigating you. They've been spying on him since 2017. What more can you investigate?
Do you think he was being so fair to France out of fear of maybe retaliation, maybe them coming down harder or anything like that?
So I watched, I'm telling you, I really did go down the rabbit hole because I wanted to understand this guy's characteristics. Because he did seem very, like, mild-mannered during this interview with Tucker. No, it's just who he is.
Okay.
And he's a libertarian. He's a real libertarian who doesn't agree with government overreach, and he sees this effort to get data on private citizens using his platform as government overreach. He's happy to comply as it pertains to probable cause and a court order signed by a judge to get information on individuals who are suspected of committing actual crimes. But he's not going to, like, willy-nilly hand over data to government authorities.
That's actually really admirable.
I agree.
Do you know when the interview was taped with Tucker?
About a year ago.
Because Jillian brought up a really interesting point yesterday. You said that Tucker doesn't use a computer because you're afraid that people...
they're going to plant deeply incriminating things.
I'm just wondering if his interview with this man impacted his thinking along those lines because he saw it happen.
Maybe.
Definitely possible. And one other thing I really want to hone in on for a second, in the event that people are unfamiliar with the term debanked or what it means to be debanked, it is absolute 100% excommunication. You cannot function in society as we know it. Your accounts are closed, your funds are frozen, you have denial of services, you can't get credit, you can't pay people. That is it. And since in America, our government can't legally do those kinds of things, they lean on private institutions like the banks to just wipe you out and you shut your businesses down.
To paralyze you.
100%. So just so you realize, Eric Trump is suing. Okay, so I remember this in March 2025, Eric Trump, alongside Donald J. Trump's Revocable Trust and other Trump-related entities, filed a lawsuit in Florida against Capital One, alleging they were debanked in 2021, and the suit claims that Capital One closed more than 300 of their bank accounts.
Wow.
Many without notice, accusing the bank of politically motivated actions, which, I mean, so this is a very dangerous tool.
Absolutely,
A very
it is.
dangerous tool that's being weaponized and scares the crap out of
Something
me.
similar is actually happening in the States right now with Armenians. I forget which bank it is, but there was a bank that decided we're not going to do business with Armenians because, look, it's a bit of a stereotype, but you know, Medicare fraud is an issue.
Are you serious?
And so they're
That's
like,
actually racist then.
yeah.
Wow.
It is.
Wow.
It is. But no one cares about Armenians, so they
Say,
got debanked.
no one cares about you.
Yeah.
So you're a little too white. So no,
I mean-
I'm just being honest.
And look, yes, in the past there have been Armenians involved in organized crime and they defraud Medicare. And by the way, I want them to be arrested because those are my tax dollars. I want them to go where they're meant to go. But to just make a blanket ban on Armenians, I think it is insane.
Can I make one just quick point? A little off topic, but this is why we should be sounding the alarm on CBDCs. If you guys ever see any legislation that is soon going to be presented, like call your local congressperson, tell them to vote against it because debanking is happening, it's real, and it will be that much easier for them to do and to completely switch off your access to funds.
Oh, wow.
On a CBDC.
So yes, Los Angeles launches civil rights probe into alleged banking discrimination against Armenian Americans. Yep.
That is
Wow.
Armenian American.
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
That is also why I say this is the era of Bitcoin, which will empower people. And don't be afraid that it's $120,000 because ETFs, those exchange-traded funds, allow you to purchase it at your comfort level. So you will never be debanked if you have Bitcoin. They just can't. You own it.
Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.